All right, welcome back to this week's walk and talk from the beautiful Isle of Man. And what an absolutely insane week of news this week was. I've got so much to talk about. This might be a longer video than usual, which I'm sure some of you will appreciate. I know some people say, oh, it's too long, keep it to 2 minutes or whatever people say these days. So yeah, it might be a bit of a longer video today, but we're going to do a lot of geopolitics as opposed to finance today, but we will touch upon some finance towards the end of the video and a couple of controversial things as well if we have time. So I was having a really good week, lots to do this week, as you know, after the issues before with my van getting stolen and, you know, getting robbed and everything else. So I've been sorting a lot of that this week. It's just unbelievable, these insurance companies, how they, you know, treat you like you're the criminal and the police aren't even, you know, interested. The West is just backwards at the moment. It's on fire. And we'll talk about on fire in a moment. But I was having a pretty good week and I thought, oh, the news is pretty calm this week, until I went onto Twitter, or should I say X. Oh gosh. Renaming Twitter, what a brand mistake. But anyway, and it's only when you go onto that platform you realize just how crazy the world is, or should I say how crazy the West is. And I think I mentioned this before, but if you go outside of the West to other countries, you wouldn't know that any of this craziness is going on because it's not even in their media. It doesn't even pop up on some of their social media. It's just normal families, the family unit, normal living in a lot of these other countries. But here the media is so crazy and controlled that the stories are baffling. And I'll give you an example of this. So we're all getting used to seeing now these riots and looting mobs in major US cities. It's pretty common now. It's mainly certain cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, you know the kind of cities we're talking about here. And there was one this week in New York, I think it was Times Square, and it was absolutely insane.
What started as a peaceful PlayStation giveaway in Union Square by the wildly popular Twitch and YouTube star Kai Cenat devolved into this pandemonium, the likes of which we don't usually see even in New York City.
Very big riot. It was just out of control.
So this riot then in New York this week was crazy. And this poor old guy, he just seemed a nice old guy running his stall, whatever food it was. They ransacked his store, destroyed all of his stuff, and smashed him over the head multiple times. And yet, what have all these commentators been saying? Oh, this guy's exaggerating. Oh, you know, it was nothing. It was just, what did someone say? A $3 bag of Doritos or something. He's blowing it out of proportion. No, he's not. So what happened this week then in London? We saw one of these flash mobs. And I don't know the full details because it's very vague, but someone put it on TikTok or something like that and said, flash mob, Oxford Street, we're going to loot JD Sports. And that's exactly what happened. Thousands of people turned up. And that really was, I mean, you should have seen the police response to that. Batons, and they had, you know, they were mounted on horses. It was pretty crazy and violent affair. But the mainstream media didn't really cover much of it. The only thing I did see was that, you know, the usual thing is that the police were racist towards the group and, you know, all this sort of stuff. Again, let's not even get into all of that because this is what the media uses to try and divide us. But the thing I do find really stupid or dumb, I guess you can say, is that we keep getting these people who make these videos, you know, and their personal videos saying, wow, I was robbed this week in San Francisco. I had someone threaten something on me. I had someone do this. I'm not even going to give details. A lot of it's quite graphic and pretty gruesome. And they say, oh, because of this, I'm going to be moving away and I'm moving to Texas or whatever else. But the problem is these people are that stupid. They don't realize that moving somewhere else is not going to solve the problem, because they're still going to take their super, and again, I don't want to get into politics here, left and right, but a lot of these people are on the very, very far left with their liberal viewpoints. And I know some of you are Democrat or whatever watching. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about these people on the very, very extreme left who vote for all this stuff and say open borders and everything else. And then when the borders are open and all this stuff happens, or it's not even just open borders actually, it's the decriminalization of criminality basically, and having all these drugs banks and everything else. I'll just let people do, you know, their drugs and whatever else. And because they're not actually taking action against it and there's no penalty for it, these things get worse. And then the people who voted for it in the first place, they then say, that's it, things have gone to crap, I'm moving. And they're that stupid, they don't realize why it's gone to crap in the first place. And I saw this video this week of different people using their hands in America to pay for their groceries. And they're all, you know, they're getting all excited about it. Wow, this is the coolest thing ever. Really? Really? Okay.
By Palm Technology will be at all of those stores nationwide by the end of the year. Customers just have to hover their hand over the device to pay.
Yeah, it's the coolest thing ever right now. Just wait, let's just give it a few months, maybe give it a couple of years. Let's see if it's still the coolest thing ever. I think not, once everyone starts realizing what actually is going to happen, especially with this digital ID. This digital ID is not what everyone thinks it is. You're probably going to see, and again, I'm just freestyling here, some sort of cyber attack. We're going to see some sort of issue with the banking sector. People are going to lose a lot of money. We've seen more bank failures recently. We're going to see the launch of a CBDC alongside the normal fiat currency. And then the government's going to say, see, we need this digital ID that everyone has because we don't know who's AI, who's a criminal. We need to get rid of cash, which they're doing again. The M1 supply has dropped dramatically. Well, let me be more specific. The cash supply within the M1 supply has dropped dramatically again at the moment. Australia, serious drop. But the other thing is these robot delivery vehicles that everyone was so excited about. Well, what's happening to them now in all of these major cities? They are getting robbed every single time they go out on the sidewalks. They're getting robbed. They're getting destroyed. There was a video I saw, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it because it was on TikTok, of this guy who just built this multi-million-dollar robot. Millions this was. And he took it out to San Francisco. What an idiot. Who would do that on the street to trial it out and have it talk to people? Anyway, this guy just comes up, picks it up and smashes it to pieces. Obviously another drug addict. I blame that guy in the first place for being that woke that he thought he could take his multi-million-dollar robot onto the streets there and that wouldn't happen. But it's not just US cities. I shouldn't just focus on them. You look at European cities as well at the moment. They are literally, and again, I am using the word correctly here, they are literally on fire right now. This has been going on for months. And some of these cities are still on fire. Massive riots every single night. The police can't even handle it. They're not going into certain areas now because they've just been completely overrun. And then the government said, I just can't figure it out. I just can't figure out why these people, as they are saying, are rioting like this after everything we've done for them. But yeah, I wouldn't live in any major city in Europe or the USA right now. None at all, not one. I mean, this is the only place, it's quite funny. So the Isle of Man was my plan B. This was my get out of Europe plan, as it were, even though it is inside Europe. It's a bit complicated, we won't go into it, but the Isle of Man is not part of the UK, it's a separate country. It's actually the richest country in the world by GDP capita. But anyway, by the by, This was my plan B to get out of the UK, out of the European sort of region, so that I wouldn't have to worry about all these crazy things and all these policies that are coming through. But it even seems that a couple of these policies are coming here now. There was a survey this week by the government asking about cash. So they wanted everyone's opinion on how often they use cash and all this stuff. It was obvious from the survey that they want to get rid of cash. It was so obvious they want to go to this digital currency, because there was a lot of leading questions, even about the UK, you know, around how the UK is going to be going to this cashless system and everything else. Oh look, there's some chuffs here. There he is, right in the middle. What a beautiful bird. There he goes. But even still, with everything going on, I still think this is probably one of the best places that you can live. But even with this, I'm planning for, I've now got to have a new plan B. My plan C is now my plan B. And I'm even creating a new plan C. I mean, this is how crazy things are getting. So I've always thought, and I might not have shared this on YouTube, but I've talked about it a lot in the Patreon, which is my private community. And I've always talked about how I think 2027 is going to be the key year. I've always thought that. I still think that now. 2027 is going to be the key year in this cycle. But even with that, I'm thinking now, with everything going on, that 2027 might, for me, be a gamble to even wait that long to enact everything. That's why I've got double the amount of people now working on my property, because we've got to accelerate everything and get everything ready. And I'm going to have to start learning a new skill as well, which actually I will tell you. Some of you will find it funny, but I want to learn to sail. So I want to get a sailboat, which is also my plan C, because I met a guy, really cool guy from the private community, and he is a sailor and he's got his own sailboat and everything else. And he completely converted me to getting a sailboat, completely converted me. Before I thought, nah, there's not interest in that, but now his arguments converted me. So I need to learn to sail. Anyone's got some tips? If you're, you know, a very experienced sailor, let me know, because you never know. I might need to learn and come on a sailing trip. But yeah, I'm still working really hard on my plan B at the moment, because I just think this is not going to get better. These things are accelerating. They're going to get worse. And we're also seeing loads of stuff militarily. I'll talk about that in a moment, because I know that some people will say, oh, well, Neil, it's easy for you. I read all the comments. I see this all the time. It's easy for you, Neil. You've got money and you can escape and you can do all this. Well, I got so fed up of reading all those comments that I've actually added a bonus chapter to my new course coming out, the wealth accumulation course, because people keep saying, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't accumulate wealth, I can't, you know, live a similar lifestyle, and I can't. So this course now, I've built it in a way, I've tested it with people that is pretty much foolproof, I think. I don't know what else I can add to it that can help people to build wealth. And I think, and by the way, wealth isn't just like becoming a millionaire. I don't mean that. I mean having wealth throughout all your life. So again, that should be released this week to the Patreon. It'll be released next week or so to the YouTube. But this will help you to escape this crazy system. If you are worried you want to escape, that course will help you. But it's not ready just yet. It will be ready soon. I'll let you know. Now, the other thing this week is the UK government, hold on, I wrote this down, may campaign to leave the ECHR, which is the European Union Convention on Human Rights, because this council, whoever they are, keeps stopping the UK from deporting, and again, I'm just reading this from the notes, by the way. They're stopping the UK from deporting illegal migrants from the country. The ECHR is separate from the EU, so the UK is not permitted to voluntarily leave this, as they thought how they can mess this up when they left the European Union. When they left the EU, they thought they could leave this, but they were told they can't. So these people, this organization, outside the UK is banning the UK from deporting. And again, I'm not saying this is what the facts and this article says they're stopping them from deporting illegal migrants. And just on that topic, I was on the ferry on Wednesday, I think it was, Tuesday or Wednesday, picking up my new van. So I had to go across to England, pick up a new van, etc., etc. And I was really surprised what I saw on the news while I was on the ferry. Not that I watch it, but it was there in the corner of my eye. And they had all these people on, politicians and everything, talking about this whole migrant situation. It was a complete reversal from everything that they've been saying for a long time now. And they were saying something needs to be done about it. There's too many, there's all this crime, there's this, there's that. And, they're complaining about their conditions. And I think the Tory, some guy in the Tories anyway, said if they don't like the conditions in these hotels, they can F off back to where they came from. And, it's all this sort of stuff. And I thought, what am I watching here? Is this really the mainstream media? But it looks like they're starting to flip with a lot of these policies anyway. But let's move over to a little bit of finance, and we're going to jump around a lot today. So the US inflation figure has just gone back up again. So they're not really too concerned about this. But the one thing that they're not talking about, and again, this all links together, what have they not said? They've not said that 90% of that inflation rise was due to one thing. What was that one thing? Housing. 90% of it was from housing costs going up. Why are housing costs going up? Again, we've talked about all this many times before. Interest rates, inventory, everything else. But that's one of the key things though. It is the level of inventory. And it's the same thing that we're seeing in a lot of other countries as well. Because there is so much migration, and again, I'm not talking about, wow, the wind is pretty fierce now. I'm not talking about illegal migration. I'm talking about migration in general. This is just basic economics. When you have a lot more people coming into a country than is leaving a country, and you're not maintaining the housing stock and you're not building new housing, you are going to get issues with prices going up on housing like we're seeing. This is just simple supply and demand. Well, the wind is really, gosh, goodness me. Let me see if I can get into some shelter here. No, it's even more windy over here. Apologies if the camera's shaking here. I'm holding it as hard as I can, but the wind is pretty fierce. Now we've reached the top, as you can see behind. We're at the top now. But yeah, I saw this crazy statistic today, which just boggled my mind. The average US mortgage payment, this is the average, right, is now $2,650 in the US. And that's an average payment rate of 3%. How on earth is that even possible? How imagine if that went to 6%. Not that it will, because these are 15, 30-year rates. $2,650. I just don't know how the average person or average family can afford a payment like that. It is just, that's a lot. That is a lot of money. Because if you think of what's happening in the UK now, buy-to-let mortgages, which are landlord mortgages basically, they have, the arrears on them, so people falling into arrears, has increased by 30% over the last quarter. 30%. That is staggering, but not unexpected based on these new rates that are very, very high, and people just can't afford to pay these, especially with this high inflation, cost of living crisis, things like that. Some landlords that have full-time jobs and they're offsetting the buy-to-let rate with their income. Well, yeah, you can do that with one, maybe two houses if you're earning good money, but you can't do that like some landlords have a portfolio. You can't do that with a portfolio. Another big story then that's out today is, or actually it was out overnight, is around all this further restrictions that Biden has announced with China and tech and everything else. So this has angered China massively. And also, here's another interesting statistic. Over $3 billion was invested into Chinese debt over the last month, which is a huge amount of money. So people are actually taking, these are mainly investors, and rather than investing in US debt, they're starting now to invest into Chinese debt. So obviously the US aren't going to be happy about that either. But the tech sector is where there's the biggest issue at the moment. Gosh, this wind. What? I don't know where all this wind has just come from. It's quite funny because when I woke up this morning, it was lovely and sunny, and I thought, right, let's get this scripted, let's get all my bullet points, let's look at all the stories, come out and take a nice walk in the sun. And now look, it's overcast. That's what they say about the Isle of Man. If you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes and it'll change. But yeah, this restriction in investment has angered China massively, really, really badly. And now the UK, so Rishi Sunak, he's got this meeting with all these business leaders where he wants to have the UK businesses restrict investment into China as well and stop working with them. Now the European Union is talking about this as well. Now, it's pretty simple when we talk about Poland in a minute and a couple of others. What's going on here? You've just got to connect the dots, because it's obvious to me where all of this is leading. It's leading towards military conflict between the West and the East, or we should say the BRICS nations in particular. But the public, even when I talk to people, they don't see it. They don't see an escalation of military conflict. Even though Poland is sending 10,000 soldiers to the border as we speak, people still don't see it. Even though there's certain countries now that are conscripting men, yes, men, for military service in Eastern Europe. And no, I'm not talking about Ukraine here. People still don't see it and they don't think anything's going to happen. This is why I'm pulling forward my plans. And I know people make these comments all the time and say, you're paranoid, you're paranoid. Well, okay, we'll see who's paranoid. Everyone said I was paranoid during the COVID and the lockdowns and everything. And yet they weren't saying that once I got out and everyone else was in there and restricted and couldn't even take a flight or anything like that. Oh, look how many dogs. Whoa, that was a lot of dogs that just walked by. Yeah, and then we've got Biden's just asked for another 25 billion for, the wind's gone now, good. He's just asked for another 25 billion for Ukraine again today, which is, I mean, the irony of this is pretty crazy, because there's all of these things around the Biden family at the moment. If you've been watching the news, you won't have seen any of this. But there are massive investigations. In fact, let me give you the official story on this in a second. But not just that, I mean, putting the Ukraine war and everything else to the side, how has Zelensky added tens of millions to his net worth in the last year? I really don't know. That's a mystery. How has his minister as well just bought his daughter a multi-million-dollar home? I just don't know where this money is coming from. It's an absolute mystery. But let me read out about the here we go. So the House Oversight Committee has found more evidence of the Biden family accepting unusual payments, they're calling it. And no, we're not talking about hundreds of dollars or thousands here. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars. And look, it's pretty obvious, if you know anything about finance like I do and companies and all that, it's obvious, it's blatantly obvious. You don't set up shell companies in overseas territories and then accept one payment into each company per year where you can't even trace that payment and where it's come from. I mean, come on, it's obvious what is going on. And then there's this massive payment from Russian billionaires. Hunter's got all these payments as well and everything else. It's so obvious what's going on. But when that story actually broke, what happened the next day? There was this new investigation into Trump. Oh gosh, it's so funny. Every time something comes out about Biden, there's an investigation the next day into Trump. It just makes me laugh. It really does. And I said to someone about this, who is you know, they're quite a left-leaning sort of person, and they said to me, oh, it's just a coincidence. And I said, 6 times in a row, every time something comes out on Biden, 6 times in a row, you think that's a coincidence? You don't think? And I said, look, it doesn't matter what you think about Trump or Biden or whichever way you lean. It's obvious what's going on there. And people say, no, it's just a coincidence. Okay, maybe. Another video I saw this week, which was insane, was there's this, I mean, I'm going to have to look into this more because I don't even know if all of this is true, so take it with a pinch of salt. But I have seen these videos going around, I've seen 4 of them so far, of people going around and kicking people off their own land and taking over their property. I just want to read out what they said. It's called the Native Charter. So I'm going to have to look into this and find out what it is, but it's this native charter where people can take back their native land. So I'm going to have to look into this week and find out all about this, because some of these videos are, yeah, pretty serious business going on. Again, I always tell you, if you want to look at some of the more extreme stuff, do a search for it and find it. But I've just got to be very careful what I say on the videos, because they do get banned, and then I get hit with a strike and I can't post for a week and all this other stuff. But if you ever want to see any of this other stuff, just do some searches. So yeah, Poland, 10,000 troops going to the border. Let me tell you, if you are Polish, you hold a Polish passport, which I know many of you do who subscribe to the channel, I would be taking precautions right now, let's just say that. Oh, heart murmur, I've got a heart murmur, I've got asthma, I've got all sorts of things. Because when that letter comes through, unless you want to be going and fighting in another country as cannon fodder, then you're going to need a reason not to. Especially as NATO has now built up the troops and weapon systems by 250% in the last year. That is a big increase, let me just say that. And people say, oh no, it's de-escalating now. Really? Really? You think 10,000 Polish troops going to the border and a 250% increase in systems and troops is de-escalation? Well, I don't know about your mathematics and economics, but when I went to school, that doesn't sound like a de-escalation to me. And talking of crazies, here's a good one. The end of global warming has ended, and the era of global boiling has arrived. The United Nations claims that July was the hottest month ever recorded on Earth in human history. In fact, oh my gosh, I've got to read this out. The world became so hot that water boiled in places. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Oh my gosh. People will believe that, by the way. People will believe that statement, that the world got so hot that somewhere water boiled, so that the ground had to get to 100 degrees Celsius for that water to boil. No, it didn't. There's just no way. This is ridiculous. And the other thing, in fact, we'll come on to the temperatures in a minute, because I'm going to tell you a story about lions and what they're saying about lion populations now. They change the narrative every week, every month, every year to suit the agenda that they are pushing. And I know that they're faking a lot of stuff, because I was on Twitter, I don't know how long ago now, several weeks ago, and it was this guy posting about how the BBC was faking temperatures. I didn't even think of this. I did not even think this was going on. And he showed actual temperatures in certain countries, and it showed the BBC temperatures. And they were a lot higher. Some of them were 10 degrees higher than the actual temperatures in these regions. Now, you would never know that, because unless you're in that region, you've got a thermostat in your hand, you are not going to know what that actual temperature is if the weather office, BBC and everyone else reports that it's higher than it actually is. The other thing they've started doing now is, instead of using blues and yellows and greens and whatever. They're using red for temperatures, or black to make it look as if it's a scorched earth and everything else. When actually, if you look at these temperatures, it's similar actually to what it has been. They are just making stuff up all the time to make you think like these temperatures have 10x'd or something. So get ready to start seeing a new wave of media and articles and all sorts of things now. And remember, this feeds into the global socialism things that we talked about. Remember that video I made on the One World Government Summit? And people are going to say, oh, I'm switching off at this point. Hold on a second, let me just post an image here. And as usual, there's Klaus. Why he was the headline speaker at the One World Government Summit, I'm not entirely sure, but I think we can guess. And at the summit, they were very clear that we need to have this sort of global social equity, is what they're calling it, where all countries around the world are equalized in a very short space of time. So what we're going to see next, I believe, is media articles coming out talking about how the wealthy countries need to send trillions of dollars or whatever currency to the poorer nations for climate repatriations and reparations or whatever. We're going to start to see all this stuff happening. Oh, there we go. The sun has just started to break out. Here we go. You can see it behind me here. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful. Just need to burn off a little bit more cloud and we'll have a lovely sunny day here. And Rishi Sunak has got a cheek. He has taken more flights in his first 7 months as Prime Minister. And again, this is from the BBC website. Says like for like than all three of the last Prime Ministers combined. I'll need to check that statistic out because it sounds a bit far-fetched. But they're on the rampage against Rishi at the minute. I'm not exactly sure why. But yeah, it is funny that he's saying people should be ashamed of themselves that take domestic flights instead of the train. And yet, he keeps taking domestic flights everywhere. In fact, there was a 10-minute car journey that he apparently took by helicopter. I mean, what? Okay, yeah, baffling. So this is the thing. They keep telling everyone else about their carbon and everything, you know, all these things. And then they're using probably 100 times, if not 1,000 times more than the average person in terms of carbon. Oh, it's getting bright now. Let's get these sunglasses on. Okay, let's come on to this lion story then that I saw today. So they said the lion population was 350,000 in 1900, but today, as a result of climate change, is just 20,000. Now, do you remember maybe 5 or 10 years ago when they talked about that? They didn't say it was anything to do with that. What they said it was to do with was poaching and hunters and all of these, you know, other things, habitat loss and things like that, over farming and, you know, things. But now they're saying that it's because of temperature changes. So you can see this chart on screen here, and this is what they keep using for a lot of these articles. But notice that it only goes back to 1880. Why? Well, if you look at longer range charts, you'll see why. And for all the skeptics, I've actually pulled this off Wikipedia. So no one can say, oh, he's pulled this off some right-wing channel or whatever people usually say. No, I pulled it off the most biased media outlet out there, apart from CNN, I guess, and that is Wikipedia. Completely biased. So look at this chart then, and you go back further than 1880, and you might just notice some temperature patterns here. Of course, they don't ever put this anywhere. They don't want you to know about certain temperature patterns. But anyway, let's get off this topic before people get too upset. I know there's going to be a small percentage here of people that are going to get upset with these comments. So let's move on to the finance bit then. And Fitch last week just downgraded the US credit rating. Oops. That did not make Biden or Yellen or Powell very happy at all. They are, well, I don't know if we can use the word furious, but they're definitely angry about it. In fact, Yellen came on and said what she normally says, that the US is the most strongest country in the world, and we Yeah, come on, get on with it, Yellen. What are you trying to say? That's what I always think when she's talking. I'm like, get on with it, Yellen. Get the propaganda out. What do you want everyone to believe? But yeah, now Moody's is just talking about downgrading. I don't know if they've done it yet, but they're definitely looking to downgrade 27 US banks as well. So I had to look into this, find out what exactly their concerns are, and they both expect deterioration in the United States in the next 3 years. So of course, as soon as I read that, I said, oh, just wait, here we go. We're going to get a statement out that says, we don't think there's going to be a recession anymore in the US. Definitely not going to come at the end of this year or early next year. Oh no, we've averted it because of our Bidenomics. Guess what? That's exactly what they came out and said. Bidenomics is working and everything else. Oh yeah, nothing to do with the oil price that dropped dramatically over the last year, and now it's about to go back up. No, nothing to do with that at all, which feeds into the economy. Nope, no mention of the oil price. Also no mention of what's happening in the US. And this is something for you to pay attention to. And that is that the number of American citizens withdrawing from their 401k right now is absolutely, I mean, these are levels like we haven't seen in decades. Huge. Last month, 36% increase in people pulling money out of their 401ks, or even just self-managing their 401ks themselves. Which is interesting because that's exactly what I said, not financial advice, but that's what I would do in many of your situations. Why would I leave my money in a pension run by my company or the government or whatever else, when I can do the exact same thing, having a SIP or something similar to that where I can manage it myself, put it in an index fund, something like that, and then add to it? Why would I leave it in these risky places? So I guess a lot of people are getting the message now and doing this. And remember, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do one-on-one mentoring. If you ever want a 1-hour session with me, the link is below in the description. But apart from that, then I don't think I'll go on to the controversial stories today. I think this walk was controversial enough and long enough. But new course coming out shortly. If you haven't done my last course yet, then you can get on that and take that course, because otherwise you're going to have two beasts of courses to watch, two massive courses to watch. So if you haven't done the first one, which is the macro economics, teaches you all about money and finance and just the world of how all this stuff works. And then of course it's got all the stock market, how to do the stock market and everything else, invest in the stock market. Then you can take that, the link below is in the description. And yeah, really exciting that the new course is out in the next couple of weeks. So that is it for today, I think. Thanks for being a subscriber here and supporting the channel. Thank you for the people who bought me a coffee last week. That was really kind. I didn't actually think of that. So thank you for doing that. Apart from that, take care. God bless you. God bless your family. And I'll see you next week.